That's why I'm telling you now. So just prepare, bring her a card or something. So Jen, you have my slide. I sent you that, right? Okay. So how many remember what we talked about last week? What kind of trust, though? Vertical trust. Last week we talked about a vertical trust, which is our trust in God, and I had a slide where it was like a guy standing on a cliff, and he had his hands up like this because he was like he was focused on God. So this week we're talking about horizontal trust, which is our trust with those around us. Wrong one, Jen. Oh, there we go. Horizontal trust. That guy's trusting that guy to be hanging on the cliff like that. That's a lot of trust. I don't know. I'd have to trust somebody a lot to be hanging off the side like that. With one hand? No thanks. Yeah, right. So last week in our Navigate series, we talked about restoring vertical trust, which is our trust in God, our Creator. We introduced the idea that our emotional healing and recovery from life's wounds begin when we take the necessary risks and do the hard work that allows God to restore our ability to trust. In this lesson on horizontal trust, we are going to build on the principles that we adopted in the vertical trust lesson and expand on them to restore healthy trust in the people that are around us. Without the restoration of trust, we become stuck in our woundedness and we resort to coping instead of healing. So, like all the subjects we have covered in this Navigate series, if we don't heal from life's obstacles and hurts, we end up having destructive coping behaviors just to survive. So when we talk about horizontal trust, we're talking about our trust in the people that we come in contact with. It could be our family members, our coworkers, friends, even people like doctors, just our everyday life. Our thoughts about not being able to trust are, I don't need anyone. They always let me down. I've been hurt so many times. Life will always be this way. I have to meet my own needs because I can't trust anybody. I have to do it myself. So the result in behaviors because of this distrust is, this is what results. Isolation. We have rage or anger. We have hypervigilance to everything around us. We stay busy. We overwork. We have substance abuse. We have unhealthy relationships. We have media saturation. Or we might have a judgmental or critical spirit. The list can go on. All those things can come from their coping mechanisms because we have such a distrust in our spirit. So as I stated last week, Webster's dictionary definition of trust is an assured reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something, or one in which confidence is placed. So trust is something that is absolutely necessary for taking risks required to receive the emotional healing in all areas of our life. Just like this picture in my sermon slide here, you're not going to be holding on to somebody's hand that you don't trust in that situation, right? When you're hanging off of a cliff. It's just, that would not be smart. I don't know if you know, like, there was just a story recently I saw on the news, but a lot of people that are avid, like, hikers and stuff, they tell you you really should not hike alone because you're out in the deep woods. Just a lot can happen. So there was just an article I saw a couple weeks ago. A girl who was an avid hiker, very well, she was in shape, hiked a lot. They couldn't find her. Here she went out hiking alone and she died of, it got so hot and I think they said she got like just overheated, dehydrated. She literally died out in the woods by herself. So there's trust in numbers. When we allow people to be in our life, there's trust in numbers, right? It's just like, so you don't want to go out hiking by yourself because then you don't have anybody to kind of, when there's more than one of you, you're keeping an eye on each other, right? You fall, you get hurt, there's somebody there to help you. There's somebody to take you to safety. There's somebody to see that you're physically not doing well, right? But the isolation in that, just like hiking, we're unprotected because we don't have anybody alongside of us to help us out. So trust is the trailhead to the path of restoration. When we are unwilling or unable to begin to trust, we're unable to heal. We become stagnant and stuck. So all of us have been wounded in life, right? We all have wounds. Some of us have been through betrayal, abandonment, loss, disappointments, neglects. To say that you can look at somebody, oh, they've never been through what I've been through, it's just not true. Some people don't talk about their hurts, but everybody has gone through something. So these experiences are lived out as we relate to other people. Sadly, because of a sinful nature within our world, when we have relationships with people, we are guaranteed to be hurt. We're let down, disappointed, betrayed, or hurt by others, and the result is broken trust. We then build up walls and make vows to ourselves that make us feel protected from being hurt again. But the product of having no trust is having no healing. Okay? No trust equals no healing. So the result of these walls that we put up is an isolation where we become stagnant and stuck within our wounds, and we distrust. We adopt destructive behaviors to cope with unwanted memories and emotions. That's how we cope. So all these things that come back to our mind that deal with people hurting us, and we just put in these behaviors that just help us to cope to get by. So like I stated last week, a lesson taught by pastor, myself, or any of the other ministers is not going to help you heal that trust. We can't just get up here. We can tell you scriptures. We can give you the key points. We can do all these things, but you have to do it and want it for yourself. We all have to put in the effort to heal. We acquired our wounds through experiences, and our healing comes through that same way. It comes through experiences, but new positive ones. So your wounds came from negative experiences, but the only way that you can heal is by allowing yourself to take risks to have good healing experiences, right? Positive ones. So we find that healing in taking healthy risks required to build new relationships with a newfound trust in mind. So relationships bring wounding, which equals broken trust, which means that we are stuck in our wounds. Healthy risks equals restored trust, and that equals healing found in relationships with God and others. We begin our healing journey when we take the risks that allow God to heal our broken trust. Now, I will say I am not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that we just go around blindly trusting everybody. You have to be smart about it. I am very much a proponent of boundaries. I taught a whole series on boundaries. You have to have boundaries in life. You have to learn to have healthy boundaries, but that doesn't mean we walk around not trusting everybody all the time. Learning to trust again comes up alongside with forgiving others for what they have done. Forgiveness is absolute key, and it is biblical. There is nothing wrong with having boundaries to protect yourself from a toxic person, but you have to learn to forgive. So there's a big difference between walls and boundaries. When I say boundaries, that doesn't mean walls. Walls are something that stand in the way between us and another person, and they're not able to be penetrated, and they create an isolation. If there was a brick wall between me and Sister Savage right here and she couldn't see me, I'm isolated. I'm over here to myself. She can't see me. There's nothing. She can't penetrate that brick wall. Now, a boundary, if I draw a line in the sand right here, and I say, Sister Savage, you are not going to come over here. You're not going to hurt me. You're not going to touch me. I will not allow you. That's a boundary. There's a big difference. I can still see her. I can still communicate with her. I can still have a relationship, so to speak, with her. But I drew that line in the sand, and that is a boundary. So boundaries are simply limits we establish. They're lines that we draw in the sand to indicate where we stand on certain things, like our emotions, our physical or mental well-being. How many of you have heard the phrase before, I'm putting my trust in, and then fill in the, have you ever heard anybody say that? I'm putting my trust in this or that. I've often heard it, I hear it a lot. I put my trust in Jesus. I hear people say that. They're going through something or they're talking to somebody. I'm putting my trust in Jesus. Well, that statement is expressing reliance and confidence in someone or something. It signifies a belief in reliability, honesty, or effectiveness, and it can be used in various contexts. We learned last week that our vertical trust in God is crucial, and it is a lifeline to us. But what happens when we trust God, but we don't trust anybody else around us? God never intended for us to live a life like that. He never intended us to be isolated. Psalms 133:1 says, how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. So he created us in mind with having relationships with other people. He created Eve for Adam because he said, it is not well for him to be alone. So he didn't ever intend for us to just isolate ourselves and not be around other people and not trust anybody. So we don't want to unwisely throw our trust around. We do need to use wisdom and good judgment as we allocate trust to others. Instead of labeling everyone as being untrustworthy, we identify people who are worthy of our trust, and we have healthy, loving boundaries with the ones we don't. So how is trust broken? Well, it comes through betrayals, abandonment, disappointments, neglect, and oftentimes these wounds originate from early childhood experiences, and then they are affirmed in our adult experiences. So oftentimes they start when we're younger, and then they're just reaffirmed over and over. This can lead to distrust in a certain individual or categories of people. We tend to sort people into groups that fit a certain criteria that deem them as untrustworthy. So, for example, a person who's been wounded by someone in authority will often automatically distrust anyone who tries to assert authority. They automatically put the walls up. A person who's been made fun of or bullied will question and distrust compliments, assuming the person giving them have the same negative motives as the people that bully them. A person who's been abandoned by someone they had grown close to will many times sabotage a relationship as it becomes more intimate to avoid that same abandonment. They will automatically sabotage it just to avoid having that same feeling again of being abandoned. So just like, we're dog lovers, and I don't know, I've seen a lot of dogs. When I worked at Petco when I was a manager at Petco when I was in Bible college, and we'd have people, they could bring their dogs into the store. And so you would meet a lot of different dogs. And it was very rare that a dog would be scared of females, but oftentimes they would be scared of males. They do say that if a dog is abused, like early on, a lot of those dogs were like rescue dogs that would come in. If a dog is abused as a puppy by a male, they automatically put guard up to all males. That's just how they are. So us humans are the same way in a lot of aspects. If somebody, a specific graphic of people or demographic of people does something to us, we put walls up towards that same demographic, right? So the categorizing and sorting process of subconsciously placing people into a category of untrustworthiness can be applied to authority figures, certain genders, spiritual authorities, people with specific occupations, like a doctor or a lawyer. The list can go on. So if you've had bad situations happen with like doctors, you go to doctors and you're there and none of them are listening to you. You've had bad, then you're put walls up towards doctors, because you're just like, well, you're going to be like the last 4 that I saw that don't listen to me, and make me feel unheard. This Navigate series is committed to helping people reroute past life's obstacles into a life of peace, because ultimately God designed us to experience much peace and fulfillment through intimate relationships with Him and with others. Without the ability to trust others, it is impossible to experience intimacy. Well, when you hear the word intimacy is simply a closeness to someone. It does not necessarily mean a physicality of a relationship. It just refers to that closeness that you have with someone. So an intimacy. Closeness isn't just defined by proximity, which is distance to someone. It is also how we share our hearts with them. It is determined by how we let ourselves be known as we express our hearts to someone else. When we do that, we open up and we risk being vulnerable without knowing how it's going to be received. When you let your guard down around somebody and you make yourself vulnerable, especially when you're first getting to know somebody, you may not know how it's going to be received. And that's where trust begins. I have to laugh because, Brooklyn's a pretty low-key kid. I always talk about my kids. Brooklyn's a pretty low-key kid. She's walks around here. But if you get to know her, she can be super goofy. And she doesn't let that known to everybody. And that's what I mean by kind of just being that vulnerable. When she's comfortable around somebody, she can act like a total goofball. But if I embarrass her out in public, just joking around, she's like, Mom. I'm like, this was you just a couple days ago. Walking around like a goofball, It's just who she's around. So it's who she trusts. So a recap. Because of wounds and broken trust, we are fearful of the very intimacy that is required for healing. Restored ability to trust is necessary for the intimate relationship with God, and others that will lead us to new experiences. These new experiences allow our heart to heal. I'm going to read you a quick illustration that he put here in the book, Randy Brown, the author. He says, I played organized football for about 6 years. I understood football to be a very physical activity. It was a sport with the mutual understanding that if we decided to play, we should expect some pain. Pain was just part of the game. On the other hand, there had to be a high reward involved in being a member of the team, or we wouldn't participate. Sometimes the reward showed up on the scoreboard. Sometimes the reward was in the form of reaching a personal goal. And sometimes the reward was realized in the effort put forth in playing a good game instead of quitting when the going got tough. When I started going to church, I was asked to play football with some of the church members. I played football just like I had always played football. I played with the understanding that there was going to be some pain and discomfort involved. I found out that this understanding was not held by everyone on the field, as some of the guys became very angry when I tackled them with a good hard tackle. That was just part of the game in my book. One man even yelled at me and hit me with his hat. I was totally confused. There was no malice in my behavior, and I wasn't trying to injure anyone. We were just playing football. The pain was just part of the game. It was part of the pathway to the reward. The upset players walked onto the field that day with the expectation that they would not experience any pain on their way to the rewards of the game, but they were not correct in this instance. So intimacy, he says, is much like football. It's actually very close. We don't intend to injure one another, but just by the nature of the process, eventually there's going to be some pain involved. I think we all know that's the nature of football, right? Pastor played football all through high school. And what was your position? Would you do like running back? Fullback? He was always running the ball because he was super quick. And so if they got the ball in his hands, he'd be running it down the field, and he'd be down there and leaving them in the dust. But every once in a while, he'd get some spicy guy that just got a hold of him and would just like hold on to him, and pastor's like running down the field with this guy on his back, and I'm thinking, oh, don't get hurt, and I'm just up there cringing, don't get hurt. But I think we all know that the nature of football is you're bound, like the players are bound to get hurt. It's contact. They're over there, I don't know, what's the word? Just running full force and plowing into each other. I mean, it's full contact, and they're flying, and helmets are hitting each other. I mean, one time he got a helmet. Didn't you smash your finger or something? Because your finger got in between two helmets. It's constant contact. I mean, you can't play football and not get hurt. So I think he's relating this to life. Life is like intimacy in life in general is like a game of football. We're coming in contact with people every day, whether it's church, whether it's our job, whether it's just going to the grocery store. You're coming in contact with people every day. So we tend to hyper-focus on trust because of every little thing that people do to us. But that is the nature of dealing with people. We're going to get hurt. Just like playing football, there's going to be tackles and some pain from running into one another. Walking through life, we're going to run into each other, so to speak. We just are every day coming in contact with the others. We're going to hurt one another, right? So how many of you have heard the statement, "Thank you, Captain Obvious"? I like to say that sometimes when people just say something that's like so, yeah. I mean, it's like pouring down rain. Oh, it's raining outside. Yeah, it's raining. I looked up a couple just because I think it's funny, but I printed them out here. So one of them, it's a picture of a peanut butter jar. It's peanut butter. And down below it says, "Contains peanuts." Yeah, you think. It's peanut butter. It's made from peanuts. Or this one, it's a guy, it looks like Superman. It says, "Breathing will help you live." Breathing will help you live. Or there's a road sign. It says, "Caution, water on road during rain." Yes. Or there's one that was by the pool, and it says, "Do not breathe underwater." I mean, some of this stuff's just like, okay. So Captain Obvious statement. So me saying that we're going to go through life and never get hurt by anybody, that's like a Captain Obvious statement. It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. So that's what I meant by that. Like, if I come up here and I tell you, you should go through your life and never be hurt by anybody. You should never be offended. The Bible even says offenses will come. He warns us, offenses will come. They're going to come. It's not if they come, it's they will come. So Isaiah 26, 3-4 says, you will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for in Yah, the Lord, is everlasting strength. So our ultimate trust is in God. If we place our ultimate trust in God, we're going to be okay. Whatever pain God allows into our life, we will be rewarded by the healing that comes from a healthy intimacy with God and others. There's two general modes of trust. So one is general trust, which is trust until I have evidence to warrant not trusting. So that means I'm going to trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you. But then the other mode of trust is general distrusting. And this is generally taken on by somebody that's had issues with trust. General distrusting is, I'm going to distrust you until you've given me evidence to trust you. So I'm automatically going to put up walls until you give me a reason to knock them down. And that's a hard road to walk. It really is, because it takes you so much longer to ever be intimate or close with somebody because you're just constantly walking around with walls. So I was just thinking, and it's funny that this happened because my car hasn't given me any problems since I've had it. But I literally, during this lesson, I was thinking about how we every day just trust in the stupidest little things. Like, you don't go to your faucet, your sink faucet at your house and be like, are you going to turn on? I don't know. I'm going to lift it up. I don't know. We just automatically we go on because we're going to go wash our hands. We just know it's going to turn on, right? We go to the shower. We just know these things. We go out to our car. We push the button. Well, I have a push button. Or we turn